Dragon Ball. I think most of the people in the world knows at least the name. I have been a fan of Dragon Ball since the day I can read and watch videos. At the time, the only way to get my fix was either go to a manga cafe or the local video rental. I have played most of the Dragon Ball games on the NES and I want to introduce them here. Because most of the game were not officially localized, well, save for one, called the Dragon Power. Let me just get this out of the way. The first Dragon Ball game was absolutely terrible. If you enjoy pain and suffering, feel free to try the game yourself. At your own risk, that is. The first Dragon Ball game was pretty faithful to the original story, but the gameplay is bargain bin express garbage. Why do I hate this game so much? Because not only does this game have a timer, it acts as your health as well, meaning that taking damage speeds up the counter, and when you hit 0, it is game over. The only way to extend your timer is to pick up full items, which spawns randomly. And there you go, game ruined by just one mechanic. Now onto the next one. The next game is called Daimao Fukatsu, or Return of the Great Demon King. This game is mainly a text-adventure game with a bit of an RPG element to it. This is also the first time the card battle system is implemented into the series. The card consists of amount of stars shown on the top and a number in kanji on the bottom. The number of stars indicate the amount of steps you can move in the overworld, as well as the attack power of your attacks in battle. The kanji number on the bottom is the defensive power, which determines how much damage you can negate from enemy attacks. If you have significantly higher defense, you can outright dodge or endure enemy attacks. The kanji on the center of the card shows what sort of action you do. There is punch, kick, combo, stick, special, and escape. This system will become the base for the next several Dragon Ball titles. The game follows very loosely to the main story, and I mean very loosely. The game starts out with you finding Krillon's body at the Kame house. So right there, you know they are not going to follow the story to a T. The adventure part is mostly about checking out every spot and talking to every character. There are also some death traps that instantly game overs you. This game uses the password system, so you can imagine how much password I had to write down back then. The RPG element is pretty light. Enemies are fairly easy, and they're pretty generous with experience points. You will also pick up healing items that recovers your HP after battle. And these items appear fairly frequently, so you don't really need to grind to beat this game. As long as you keep a good amount of special attack cards with high amount of stars, you will have no issues in battle. At the end of this game, you fight Piccolo, who becomes young using Dragon Ball, just like in the story. The game feels underwhelming with the amount of liberty they took on the story. This did not have to be a Dragon Ball game. It is still better than Dragon Power, at least. The next installment in the series is Dragon Ball 3, Goku Den. This game puts more focus on battle and exploration and less on the adventure part. There are still death traps, but most of the time the traps will only damage you. But you will still game over if you don't have enough health to endure the damage. The battle system has also changed a bit. You can now pick a special attack, but they now cost tech points, which is essentially your mana in RPG terms. The leveling system has also changed, but for the worse. There's now a status system where you can spend 5 points to improve your strength, speed, technique, and toughness. Most of these stats pretty much speak for themselves on their effect in battle, except for speed. Speed essentially determines how well you can fight the normal enemies, but it has little effect on the bosses. And that is because bosses scales with your current level. Basically, putting points into speed will make your normal fights easier, but you will have a very tough time fighting bosses. They really made it more complicated than it had to be. Another big downgrade is the level limit. The game limits you on how much level you can obtain at a certain parts of the story. So you can't simply grind your way to victory. You have to make sure your deck is stacked with high number cards and stock up on those item cards before you fight a boss. Again, the story follows loosely to the original work. It starts out from the very beginning of the story to the point where you fight Piccolo in the tournament. The game is not very clear in what you're supposed to do next. So just like the previous game, I spent a lot of time writing down flowcharts, drawing maps, and writing down passwords. What I thought was neat was after the ending, you get a chance to fight bonus characters, like Arale from Dr. Slump and Raditz. But be prepared, because there are no pushovers. Next, we finally get into the Dragon Ball Z series. They finally got rid of the adventure part and focused more on action. A very fine choice in my opinion. Instead of following a specific path in the overworld, you can now move in all directions of your choice. The battles now have fully animated action sequences, and also supports a party system. You no longer have to fight alone. The game starts out with Raditz and ends with fighting Vegeta. There is a surprising twist in this game, where you get to fight Garlic Jr. from the movie. I thought it was cool that they chose to add movie content into the game. The Garlic Jr. movie was special to me too, because it was one of the few VHS tapes I begged my parents for and really enjoyed. I would totally recommend watching it because there were some really good fight scenes there. The fights can be difficult in this game, but I discovered a bug that lets me use unlimited healing cards. The way to do this trick is to have your item cards listed like this, and when you press down and right at the same time, your cursor moves to this invisible slot, but the item shows Master Roshi, a healing card. You can do this trick as many times as you want, so essentially you have unlimited heals. Along with this trick, I just stock up on item cards and spam special attacks until Vegeta falls. It's a pretty fun game, but the whole thing feels a bit stiff and slow. Next game is the one I played the most, Dragon Ball Z 2 Gexing Frieza. It's another direct upgrade from the previous game. The fights feels faster, the interface feels faster, and the graphics improve a great amount. Another fine addition is if you pick a card that matches the warrior's affinity, you can choose from doing a single powerful attack or attack all enemies. The game starts out from heading to planet Namek until the fight against all of Frieza's transformations. I think this game has the perfect balance of pace, gameplay, and representation. My personal favorite part is you get a uniquely large explosion effect when you use the Super Spirit Bomb. I remember being blown away when I first saw it. No puns intended. The next game, Dragon Ball Z 3, follows directly after the end of 2. The game begins with Goku transforming into a Super Saiyan and fights Frieza. In this game, the battles are even faster. Also, the characters from the back end will assist you with their special moves. A major change to the battle system is characters have multiple affinities now, and picking the matching cards will let you use special attacks. But in order to use their more powerful moves, you now have to power up for a turn and pick a card matching the affinity again. It is a bit annoying, but it's worth it for the cutscenes and the damage it deals. There is now an icon on the bottom right of the cards, which will provide random events. The dumbbell provides training, the fist provides buffs during battle, the boots affects map travel, the heart provides healing, the card affects the cards in your hands, and the exclamation mark generates random events. The way I start out with the game is I will head up to this island right above where the game begins. For some reason, when you're on this island, you don't encounter enemies. So I use this as an opportunity to simply train all of the warriors up to max level before I start progressing the story. The best way to level up for me was to save up as much of the Z number cards as possible and try to get Chi-Chi to show up as the trainer. Her training is pretty simple. You pit the cards with the same number or above against her card, with one exception of the rule being one star beats out the Z card. The key is to play until you run out of your reserved Z cards, then end the training. I just repeat this process until I max out everyone. I notice right off the bat when I get into battle, the enemies look familiar, and it turns out to be Cooler's elite forces. Again, another movie content in the game, and I'm all for it. The rest of the game follows pretty closely to the canon story. It ends with Piccolo fighting Cell, and a little tease for a potential sequel showing a bit of Cell's second form. Unfortunately, that sequel was not made because at that point, we were heading into the era of Super Nintendo. So it did not make sense to make games for the NES anymore. Well, except for one. And finally, the last Dragon Ball game to be on the NES, the plan to eradicate Saiyans. It is based on the movie of the same name. I assume this game was made to promote the movie because it was the weakest game out of them all. The devs got really lazy with this one. The concept is that machines were placed all over the world that makes the warriors lose power and forget how to use their special moves. To get the moves back, you have to guess the combination of kanji letters on the card in battle to recreate the moves. It sounds interesting on paper, but it's just tedious. There is an item card that lets you use special attacks you have already uncovered without having to make the combination of cards. But really, they should never have implemented the system in the first place. Getting a strategy guide for this game was the best choice I have made in regards to trying to complete it. To be honest, I was never able to truly complete the game, because in order to face the real final boss and the true ending, you have to beat the doctor without using any items. It is almost impossible to do this because he dodges all of your attacks except for special moves. I have tried, but I eventually have to give up. And I have no intention of going back to it now. Looking back, I really have played a lot of Dragon Ball games. And these are just the ones on the NES. There are more Dragon Ball games I have played for other systems, which I may do a video on them eventually. But I hope you enjoyed traveling through my memories through the games. Like this video and subscribe to this channel if you wish to see more. And I will see you again in the next one.